Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Chris Shul, aka the esoteric noetic, aka the chocolate Nubian soul brother from Ghana, West Africa. Oh, be sure to like the video, subscribe, click on the bell, tell your friends, tell your mom, drop us some comments, let us know what it is. Let's get it. I want to speak to you all about quite possibly the most extraordinary work of knowledge, science, spirituality, philosophy, metaphysics, conspiracy theories, all this and more rolled up in one. It is known as the Emerald Tablets of Thoth.
What is this you speak of? What is the Emerald Tablets of Thoth?
What are the Emerald Tablets of Thoth? Not to be confused with the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, by the way, because there are two tablets or references to the tablets. There's the Emerald Tablet of Thoth, which speaks about the hermetical principles which was used to form alchemy, which laid the foundations of alchemy, which is where we get chemistry from. Alchemy, chemistry. This comes from the land of Chem, as the word would imply. Chemistry, alchemy. This is all derived from ancient Egypt, from Thoth. But what I'm speaking about are the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which speaks about not just the science, the hermetical principles, but speaks about the journey of Thoth, how he brought forth so much knowledge to this world. It's more of a recent phenomenon. It's been translated many times throughout history. Cleopatra translated this. Isaac Newton translated these writings. They very much are real. More recently, Dr. Doreal from the White Brotherhood gained permission to go to the Pyramid of Giza and translate this, was able to keep a copy for himself. So first and foremost, yes, the Emerald Tablets absolutely are real. There are two different references. There's the Emerald Tablet, and then there are the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. So I'm going to be referring to the Emerald Tablets in this video. What are the Emerald Tablets of Thoth? Now, there is a well-known phrase, the thoughts create reality. Well, similarly, Thoth, who was the writer, so not the person that had this idea and someone else transcribed his message, but he was the actual author of the Emerald Tablets. And he is who we get the word thought from. Thoth essentially created your reality. And when I say that, I'm not being facetious. So much of what we see around us, from the science, the religions, metaphysics, all from the Western world, have their origins in ancient Egypt, from the mystery school knowledge of Thoth. Powerful, right? So in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, Thoth speaks about how he alone, not Cheops, by the way, who is falsely attributed for creating the pyramids. Thoth actually created the Pyramid of Giza. He speaks about his journey, how essentially after the massive cataclysms, the destruction of Atlantis, he was able to, he was actually set the task of coming to reignite the civilizations that had been destroyed. So Thoth's father, Thothme, also known as Enki, if you're familiar with the Enuma Elish, which talks about the creation stories, which also has references to a lot of this information. But essentially, Thoth's father set Thoth, also known as Hermes Trismegistus, the responsibility of bringing about the ancient wisdom that had been destroyed after these massive cataclysms. So essentially, in Atlantis, which very much did exist, we've heard of the writings of Plato speaking about this, but more specifically, Thoth speaking about the knowledge within Atlantis. Thoth was an Atlantean priest king, and essentially, after the destruction of Atlantis, came about to reignite the civilization, and he did this within ancient Egypt, where he built the pyramid, hoping that the knowledge would pave the way for the upliftment of humanity. Thoth was truly the biggest ally of humanity. There are other figures, other priest kings or rulers of this time that were not necessarily trying to lift Atlantis or lift the civilization. There are many figures such as Amen-Ra, such as Enlil, that had their own objectives according to the ancient stories. But Hermes Trismegistus, also known as Thoth, was someone that was very much driven towards uplifting the knowledge of the world, essentially bringing about light from darkness. The amount of times that he makes reference to light in the Emerald Tablets is astonishing. This figure was devoted towards wisdom, knowledge. Essentially, he would bring down religion, enlightenment, all down to knowledge, essentially illuminating your mind from darkness. He's quoted as saying that the inner fire, which is in reference to the light, is the most powerful force. It will overcome all things of the earth. Hermes Trismegistus was called Hermes Trismegistus because it makes reference to him being thrice great. Hermes, as I mentioned, was a priest king. He was the master of science. In ancient Atlantis, they focused on the science. They also focused on philosophy. And they also focused on technology. Hermes, aka Thoth, was the master of all of these things. Had mastered the foundation of reality. And he was also known as Trismegistus, thrice great, because he was 3 times born. See, this is where it gets kind of crazy. So Hermes was someone that had experienced many, many thousands of years. And you're thinking, what? What is this you speak of? People cannot live 1,000 years. I mean, maybe 100 or maybe 120, right? Well, the ancient Atlanteans had mastered death, at least some of them. First of all, Thoth was not a normal human being. I mean, in the writings, he speaks about essentially how he had seen the rise and fall of civilizations. He had conquered death. And you think about it, any civilization that has managed to live for many ages without having its knowledge destroyed, at some point is going to probably master this Euclidean meat space limitation of living for 100 or so years. And whereas most civilizations rise and fall, Thoth makes reference to this, the rise and fall of civilizations, because of these figures known as the Dark Brothers, essentially trying to circumvent people's will and bring about massive problems and so forth. When you truly see a civilization flourish, they master these things. So essentially, Thoth, through his spiritual, his technological advancement, and being a priest king, had mastered death, and speaks about how he'd managed to essentially transfer his consciousness into avatar bodies. Speaks about going into the holes of the Menti, and through some metaphysical and technological process, first of all, bearing in mind that his people, not being from this planet, by the way, are essentially a space-faring civilization, could live for much, much longer, well over hundreds, thousands of years even. So that combined with the technology, essentially, he had seen the rise and fall of civilizations and lived for thousands of years. He speaks about how he had been born 100 times, 10 times, many thousands of fold in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. And whereas I may have lost a lot of people at this point, you're thinking, oh, this must be nonsense. How could someone live for thousands of years? You see, the fascinating thing about this information is that it's not built of air and imagination. A lot of people say, oh, look, anyone could have written about some Emerald Tablet, but this is the fascinating circumstantial evidence surrounding this. The actual Emerald Tablets, as I've alluded to, are very much real. They are found within the Pyramid of Giza, within a secret chamber. They have been witnessed. Isaac Newton transcribed them. Cleopatra, many figures in history have transcribed it. It's been transcribed in Latin, Arabic, and the most recent translation, as I mentioned, by Dr. Doreal in 1925, is the translation that I'm making reference to. But the interesting thing is the actual tablets So the emerald tablets of Thoth are first of all written in, not emerald, as I used to think, as you probably think the emerald tablets, right? They're actually written in a substance that does not undergo the same kind of ionization process of manuscripts or metals. They have been created through some kind of alchemical process, giving some emerald-like hue. And they're also fastened with these hoop-like golden alloys made of the same substance. And they have lasted for thousands of years. 36,000 years according to Thoth. Essentially, he wrote these tablets in order to pave the way for mankind, to give them knowledge in regards to bringing light from the darkness. So not only do we have the fact that this emerald tablet is of high technology, you have a look at the pyramid. There are so many incredible things about the pyramid. We do not have the technology this day to construct this thing. And Thoth has deep knowledge in regards to how this thing was built. Speaks about the holes of the menti within the pyramid, all of these aspects of the pyramid, which we've actually confirmed. So this figure knows more about this than anyone, and his knowledge in regards to metaphysics, what we refer to as the Hermetical sciences, is second to none. What's interesting is if you have a look at religion, so much of this can be traced to Hermes Trismegistus. I mean, we know that the Judeo-Christian religions, they have their origin from ancient Egypt, believe it or not. The Bible, granted officially, was created by Constantine. We can trace its origins much further to the Phoenicians around 100 AD to 900 AD, who essentially were followers of, you guessed it, Thoth. You find figures like Solomon, figures like Jesus Christ, known as Yeshua, according to sources, traveled to Egypt in order to learn the mysteries. They were students of Thoth. Figures like Pythagoras, the first universal genius. You see, the history of philosophy, the history of the mystery schools is the history of religion. And all this information can be traced to, you guessed it, ancient Egypt, Thoth. Thoth was the master of all of these things. And the secrets within this book, within these emerald tablets, is something that every person that is interested in uplifting their consciousness should read. For someone like myself that has been studying the Hermetical sciences from a young age, my dad was a member of the Order of the Golden Dawn, esoteric lodge that studied the Hermetical sciences. Therefore, my upbringing dealt with learning a lot about this kind of stuff. Reading this knowledge has connected the dots to so many different things, has expanded my knowledge. And Thoth speaks about how the Emerald Tablet should be read not just once, but many, many times. I'm going through my third reading right now because it's written, granted, in a very precise way, but it's also written in a very poetic way. There is a rhythm to it, and it opens up aspects of your consciousness, taps into the latent consciousness that is manifest within you. And there is a spiritual understanding of these concepts that he speaks about, because not only does he speak about his history, how essentially we got here, not only does it give insights into the history of mankind, Atlantis, insight into technology, the pyramids of Giza, insights into immortality. Within the final two tablets, which they were reluctant to finally release, Thoth actually speaks about how you can extend your life. There's a lot of esoteric knowledge within these books, but most importantly, it gives an insight into spirituality, into how the journey, the mysteries are all about bringing light from darkness. There is no religion higher than truth. This is the theme within the mysteries. This is the theme within the Hermetical sciences. And if you read this with insight, not only will your mind grow, but so too shall your heart. And so too shall an efflorescence of consciousness emerge So without a doubt, it is the greatest work that I've ever come across. And to this day, as I'm reading it, I am still learning more and more in regards to the mysteries of the universe. It connects all the dots in regards to spirituality, in regards to science, and the origins of humanity. I think if you do not know where you come from, how can you know where you are going? And one of the most important questions right now is understanding what's going on in the world. And in order to understand that, we need to understand what has happened in the past. And one of the things I want to end with is one of my favorite passages within the Emerald Tablets, where Thoth really gives an insight into how Atlantis fell, because that's the question, right? Like, what brought forth the destruction of Atlantis? And there are many theories in regards to this, but Thoth essentially speaks about how the Atlanteans were highly advanced. I mean, this is a civilization that had mastered flight. According to many records, they could circle the planet in an hour with their crafts. They obviously have the technology to build incredible pyramids. I mean, this is essentially how Thoth was able to form this stuff, from not just the knowledge from Atlantis, but having seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. But my point is, these people were incredibly advanced, and they were advanced in also magic, which essentially is a form of science that is just not known. It's a mystery. This is what the mysteries are all about. People say, oh, I don't want to delve into the mysteries. That's magic. No, ladies and gentlemen, it's what you don't know. It's what is hidden. Now, in their exploration of magic and science, they essentially brought about, they started working with dark magic and started calling forth or unraveling these beings known as the serpent. Thoth specifically makes reference to this, essentially how when the Atlanteans started calling forth these beings with their magic from how I understood it, essentially the depths of the earth, they unleashed a very dark terror. And a lot of the people that are familiar with this realm of study, the serpent, the reptilians, are no doubt familiar with the reputation of these beings. But essentially, the Atlanteans went to war with these beings, these serpent-like beings that brought about a lot of destruction. Thoth speaks about essentially how they could, from what I understand, they could mask on the appearance of the Atlanteans. A lot of the same kind of references you hear to the reptilians that are speaking about in the ufology agenda. But essentially, these beings brought about a lot of issues, and it is my belief that they were responsible for or paved some kind of road in the cataclysms that befell Atlantis. Because one thing we know is that Atlantis existed. We have the writings of Plato, we have the writings of Thoth, and we have the writings of many other people to support this. And it definitely was destroyed. And after its destruction, we saw civilizations like in Ireland, the Tuatha, the Danann, that emerged. And you have a look at so much of the civilization, and essentially these civilizations emerged from the ruins of Atlantis. Egypt being the classic example, according to Thoth, but there are many other civilizations. And another interesting point I learned about the writings of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth was that Thoth was devoted towards reigniting these civilizations after the cataclysms. So whereas there had been cities that had been formed after these cataclysms, much of his work was to bring about this knowledge which had been destroyed in the Great Flood. So you find Thoth assigning certain priests the mission of taking this knowledge to the four corners of the earth. And this is why you find that civilizations like the Maya, Aztec civilizations have very similar structures. Their pyramidal structures are very similar to that of ancient Egypt, Kem, because this knowledge crafted by Thoth, according to him, was given to these people in order to rebuild. And in the same way that an artist, when he copies, tries to add his own elements, make things his own, you find that these pyramid structures, these technological devices that have been created in other civilizations that have the same similar elements of ancient Egypt, have their own somewhat aesthetic distinction. Like the Mayan pyramids, there's a pyramid in Maya that, well, is pyramidal in shape. something like half the size of the Pyramid of Giza, but it takes on many similarities. There are commonalities between the Mayan civilization. You have need you have a look at the names for some of their figures, but the technologies that they had, and they were very similar to the ancient Egyptians. And Thoth also spoke about how, because he had lived many, many lifetimes, because he had the power, as fantastical as it may seem, at will to essentially transmigrate his consciousness into being. So essentially the power of incarnation. He would speak about the holes of Amenti. Essentially it's like a realm that allows you to perform this transmigration into another meat body suit, amongst many other things. But he spoke about how he would live in many different civilizations. So Hermes was not only Hermes Trismegistus, but was also, apparently, according to Thoth, also known as the Mayan figure, Kukulkan, I think, Quetzalcoatl. I may be incorrect with the name there, but many of these other great figures throughout civilizations that had paved the way with astonishing technology. These were Thoth. Thoth had mastered the ability to remember all of this knowledge and essentially go through the ages bringing about this light. And one of the most inspiring things about the Emerald Tablets is that it shows what human beings are capable of, that we can reach this point where, and Thoth speaks about this, where the cycle of life and death becomes more or less one. We no longer become a civilization that does not know death, not in the sense that we know it now. And that granted, we are going through the cycle at the moment where we are seeing the rise and fall. Thoth speaks about the Dark Brothers, how in every civilization that he'd seen these figures that would try to circumvent the light, that would try to bring about destruction through greed, through control, and would eventually lead to the destruction of a civilization. But this is something that all civilizations tend to go through, the rise and fall. However, the idea that it is continual, that there is never a point where we do not see a continual effervescence of consciousness where we can move into a type 1 civilization, that's something that is not impossible, ladies and gentlemen. And very much Thoth's journey alludes to that, the fact that you can redempt your spirit from matter, that you can bring about knowledge and light and eventually uplift the vibration of the planet, to eradicate darkness, to bring light from darkness, which Thoth often refers to. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that is a synopsis of the Emerald Tablets. The Emerald Tablets, not the Emerald Tablet, which is a different work. But highly, highly recommend anyone that is sincerely interested in search for light, search for truth, delving into this, because it truly is the greatest work of knowledge, of light. It is the answer to understanding what is going on now, what is going on in the past, and what will go on. It is the answer to awakening your Christed light, to bringing about an efflorescence of consciousness and truly understanding what the entire journey has been about. Ladies and gentlemen, freaks and geeks, brothers and sisters around the world, be sure to drop some comments below. Let us know what you think. Let us know if you've read the Emerald Tablets, what your insights were into it. Until next time, remember to illuminate your mind with wisdom, strengthen your will with love, and purge all negative thought patterns from your existence. Surya Namaskara, Namaste. And to quote Thoth, the inner fire is the greatest force. It will overcometh all things of the earth. Boom shakalaka. Ow!
What is liberty?
What the? Who says you can't build muscle on a vegan diet? What's it like being a hottie in the vegan community?
There are no political solutions, only technological ones.
The economics of the system don't allow multiple competing systems to survive.
Engineering, technology, these arts of humanity, they are magic.